We can't see you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Thank you,
Yeah. So
Marlon.
yeah.
Thank you for coming.
No, no problem. Yeah. I'm like with Michael. Like I went through a lot of it. Since we were young. My parents brought me here when I was 2 years old. My mom did. It's from Mexico, but my stepdad, he's from El Salvador. So he came on an amnesty plan. Basically, it was when they were having like a huge war. But he still had to walk a whole month. He had to carry his brother. The story of how he got here is really, really sad. My mom did flee from my real dad for domestic abuse. So it's a really lengthy process, and like Michael said, it's a lot of money. The first time we met a lawyer, and this was for I met my husband in Mexico. He'd never been to the United States, no criminal record, nothing, right? The first time we went to a lawyer, they said, okay, we need $5,000 up front. That's it. We want it. We want the money in. And we were like, oh, that's a lot of money. So we did end up going and paying the whole money, the whole amount. 2 years went by and nothing was happening. We were getting no receipts. We were getting no calls from immigration, nothing. Then I called immigration and they're like, yeah, nothing has been sent in for you guys. So I called the lawyer, no answers. This went on for another like maybe 4 months. Finally went down to Dallas and was able to get in touch with someone. And they were like, yeah, we just never worked the case. So, on top of what Michael said, it's not just it's a lengthy process, but it's a lot of corruption within the lawyers who are supposedly trying to help our community, but end up taking advantage of us.
If I can touch on another thing that Marlon said, there's a lot of people, especially I've seen in the news right now when they're deporting some people that's been here 20 years. And then I've seen comments, I'll read the comments. Well, they've had 20 years to do it right. How come they didn't? Well, most of us live paycheck to paycheck. And whether that, I'm not saying that we're scrounging for every dollar. We may have a little bit, but out of all the people tell me if your transmission shoots out in your car right now, is that $2,000 going to set you behind for a transmission? Can you imagine having to come up? They send you a letter. Hey, we need $6,000 by this due date, or we need this much money by this due date. And not only is it about money, but you have to be sponsored by somebody. That's somebody attesting to you.
Someone has some music playing in the back or something.
Oh, yeah, sorry, my son.
Oh, okay.
A sponsor is somebody pretty much telling that they're agreeing with you, that they're sponsoring you, not financial or anything, but they're attesting to your character for you to be here. Not only, and that sponsor has to go through immigration approval. It took me a year to get approved for my wife. That's my wife, man. And it took them a year to just approve me to be her sponsor. That doesn't include the rest of the paperwork to become a resident. This is just me to be approved to be her sponsor. So when people say, come here and do it the right way, you need a sponsor. How are you going to get a sponsor when you're still in Mexico? How are you going to come up with all? And then I have cousins that's engineers in Mexico. I had a babysitter for my daughter that was a lawyer in Mexico. Your education doesn't transfer across the border. When you come over here, you start over. But guess what? My cousin that's an engineer in Mexico, he made more roofing after 6 months than he did as an engineer all year in Mexico. So that's why they want to come over here. That's why they do the backbreaking work. So they're coming over here. They're trying to jump through the hoops. But it's not as simple as just do it the right way. If you don't have a sponsor here to get approved, you're not going anywhere. You're not even going to get your foot in the door anywhere. And then say you get through all of that, right? You can get through all of that. There's a pardon that is sometimes granted, and I'm heavily on the sometimes. If you don't get that pardon, you have to go wait out that time in Mexico. So if you already have family here, if you're the male and you're the breadwinner and your kids are from here, or you're the mom, you can either uproot your family and go wait in Mexico for a year. My mom's ex-husband had to wait 2.5 years before he even got a response after he got deported in Mexico for those 2 years, just waiting on a response. They're scared to go back. There's not a livelihood anymore there, especially if they're committed to living a good life here. So once you start the process, you have a chance of getting sent back no matter what. You're trying to do it the right way so you don't have to go back. But then once you start the papers, they're going to send you back anyways. Like, how are you supposed to gain sponsors? How are you supposed to work and be able to get the money that the immigration calls for? And everything, every little thing. Oh, we need to file this paper. That's another $100. Oh, I just gave you $3,000. No, that's for this, not this. It's frustrating when I hear people say do it the right way.
Let me say this, and I'm going to play the devil's advocate on some things, because when I've had these conversations, these things were brought up to me. It's like, if I break in your house and I clean it up, did I not still break in your house? But because I cleaned it up, does that make it not a crime that I broke into your house? You understand what I'm saying?
But realistically, did we break in though? Because Mexico, California, we all belong to the United States. And I don't even know if you know back, there's a great documentary on PBS where it even states that Mexicans were here way before. We were with Native Americans. We lived with them. We endured this land. So if you talk about, and even immigration laws were even that big in the 1980s. If you look back and you do research, there's actually a great book, if you please go read it. I love it. Whenever I did live in Arizona, and I was able to volunteer with a nonprofit organization, it's called Neighborhood Ministries. You can look it up. They do great work. They have great resources in Honduras where they go and they teach these kids free. So it's a great foundation. But it's called Undocumented, but it's by Avia Chomsky. She will lay out for you how it is that we're even considered immigrants when we're not. We are on our land. We never left. It was taken from us, and not even from us. I would technically even say it's more taken away from Native Americans, but we were here with them, right? So it's not really breaking in anywhere when we've been here all along. We were just pushed out.
And
I get that.
Marlene, I kind of want to be. I kind of want to interject myself on the middle grounds of what Corey said, the example that you used, and then what Marlene said, because there's a lot of huge supporters in right now that's going on saying, well, that was back then, that's not now. Okay, so the example that you used, Corey, if I break in your house, is that still breaking in? Okay, now with that same example, tell me this. What if with that same example that people use, because not just you saying, I read it all over the internet, right?
Yeah.
And now with that same exact example, but you look in, the stipulations is the only way you can own a house is if you are in a house. What are you gonna do? I'm gonna break in your house. That's the only way I can have a house. But so if they say the only way you can get a house is if you are in a house, because realistically, the only way that you can gain your citizenship and residency is if you're here in the States. Mm-hmm. You can't really do it out there unless you have some kind of connections here. Like I got an aunt, she'll come back and forth and visit, but my family here is her sponsor because they're already here. Mm-hmm. So with that same logic of, if someone breaks in your house and cleans it up and fixes it up, remodels it, did they still break in your house? Yes, they did. But with that same exact example, that means the law would be the only way you can have a house is if you're already in a house. Then what do you think people are going to do? They're going to break in the house, right?
And another thing, Corey, that I think would be beneficial for everyone to know is that coming to America, even on a visa, is very hard. I have family members in Mexico whose kids have been sending them thousands of dollars, who bought lands upon lands in these rural communities, right? Because how are you really going to earn a living on top of a mountain? Because that's where my husband's family comes from. They live on top of a mountain. If you go to my Facebook, you can see photos where there is no cell phone service. They just got satellite internet a couple 2 years ago, right? So how are you expected? You have to have a certain amount of money to even apply for a visa, or you have to have a job that basically tells the United States, well, I'm a lawyer, I'm an engineer, I'm a doctor, I've been working at this company for 50 years. I really don't need to stay in America. I'm just going to go visit, right? Because my aunt had, she worked at this company for 40 years. After 40 years, they finally allowed for her to even have a visitor's visa. And she had to, show proof that she has sisters and uncles and aunts that are U.S. citizens or residents in America that she's going to come visit, that she's not just coming on a whim, right? And then on top of what Michael said about having to have a sponsor, when I was bringing my husband over to America, let me take you in mind, we have a United States citizen son. He was born here. I became a United States citizen in 2021. It took my parents about 12, 13 years to even become residents. It took my dad even longer. I can't even tell you. And he was here on an amnesty visa, right? We had to be making, myself, I had to be making over more than 30.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but on that amnesty, I think there's a lot of people that don't really understand exactly what the amnesty is. Was your dad part of that, the Ronald Reagan amnesty in 1986?
It was during the Salvadorian War. I can't tell you specifically when it was, but thank you. I will be looking that up and I will be educating myself on that. But it's kind of like the Cubans. That's part of like their amnesty, right? And so it was for my dad too. So when we came, he came and we were able to get our legal status here because of him. Nothing else. I would just say I'm lucky. But whenever I applied for my husband to come to the United States, I had to be making more than $35,000 a year. I was single. I could not possibly get that much money at all, right? On top of the cost. So adding to that, do it the right way, breaking into someone's house. And then the immigration system is not a fixed system. There is no easy way to come in. There is no right way to apply. There is no way that they maneuver it where they make it even a process that Mexicans are like, you know what? Yeah, I'll come. And when they do try to come through a worker's visa, oh man, that is even more expensive. Right now, we're in the process of trying to find one for my brother-in-law because it's very hard to have a good life in Mexico or just a life that's sustainable at all in general. And it's about $15,000 to get in here. Dollars, not pesos, dollars. Okay, that's just a worker's visa.
Well, let me ask you this, and I had this conversation before with someone. It's like when I guess you could say migrants or whatever you want to call it come here, they don't actually take on the quote unquote American culture. They still hold on to their love for their homeland, and they have their flags and all these type of things here. If you feel that much about where you're from, why not stay there? Why come to America and not try to become quote unquote American?
Does Americans still celebrate St. Patrick's Day?
Yeah.